Today, I'm going to rank every single Fortnite exotic from the worst to the best. You guys absolutely love the mythic video, so let's hop in on exotics. There's 24 of them, and the absolute worst one has to be the unstable bow. I went through all of them, and I think this one is the worst because it was a cool idea during the primal season, a bow that just changes its abilities. It was way too inconsistent and never really that useful. The fact that it was also random which power the bow would get after you shot it made it to where you couldn't plan out anything. People would eventually just shoot arrows until they got the power they actually wanted, and you had to spend a lot of gold to even buy this bow. And eventually, after trying it out, a lot of people would not even spend the gold on it. And because of that, it's the worst on this list. But let's go to number 23, the Nighthawk. Now, the thermal scope was never really that useful, and to put it on a pistol, which costed 1,225 gold from Mancake, this was another thing people just did not want to waste their gold on. The only difference between this and the normal version of this pistol is that it was a thermal scope, which didn't really help you. It only did 44 damage, and pistols at the time were very, very mid. It's not like the Mammoth pistol or the Monarch pistol. This thing was not a threat to anybody. At the end of the day, it's still an exotic weapon, so it's not completely terrible, but the rest of this list, the weapons are just better. At number 22, we have the Marksman 6-shooter. Now, the exotic version and the normal version are pretty trash, but the exotic version is just a little bit better because it does have a 4x headshot multiplier. This doesn't sound bad, but if you actually hit your shots, you can hit for over 90 headshot damage, which is the only reason you would ever use this Marksman 6-shooter. But outside of hitting headshots with this thing, it was pretty useless, but definitely still better than its normal counterpart. And at number 21, we have the Icy Grappler. This one was only in the game for a little bit. It was definitely decent for rotation because it was like a regular grappler, and when you used it, you get the ice feed effect. The only issue is that fall damage was still enabled when you use this, so a lot of people ended up falling to their death while sliding off of cliffs or builds. And speaking of the ice blocks on your feet, you couldn't get them off. You just had to wait until they went away. So if you use this at any point during a fight, you pretty much would lose control of your character. You'd have a hard time actually like staying where you want to stay. And then on top of that, there was a glitch with this thing that sends you flying across the map. So Epic eventually just removed it altogether and replaced it with the regular grappler. At number 20, we have another ice weapon, the Big Chill. Now this thing was kind of pointless in normal battle royale. Some people did find out how to use it in tournament formats very effectively. So all this thing did is apply icy feet to whoever got hit by it. It didn't do any damage. But some pros eventually realized that this thing does go through builds. So in a very stacked endgame, you could shoot underneath high ground and they would start sliding off of high ground and fall to their death. Or if you were on high ground, you could shoot it down below you and players would start sliding back into storm and just all die. So outside of tournaments, nobody used this, but it did have purpose in tournaments, which is why it's not last on this list. At number 19, we have the Boom Sniper Rifle. Probably one of the most annoying things to get spammed by. It sounds cool, but the issue is that it didn't really do a lot of damage. It did 10 damage if you actually hit the target, and then 75 damage from the explosion. So if you hit the target and it explodes, that's 85 damage in total, but you could just hit them with a regular sniper for over 100 damage. The only good thing about this sniper is it did blow up builds and it had splash damage. So even if you shot near somebody and were kind of off target, you could still hit them for 75. So not the worst thing, but there's definitely much better exotics on this list. At number 18, we have a pretty good one right here. I mean, the rest of these exotics are going to start just getting better and better. We have the Chili Chug Splash. So this is a healing item similar to the normal splashes, but it gave you the spicy pepper effect, allowing you to run very fast for about a minute. It was introduced in Chapter 2, and back then we did not have sprinting, so this was a really big game changer when it came to rotating in endgame. At the end of the day, it's still just a normal chug splash with the pepper effect, so it's nothing too crazy, which is why it's number 18. Number 17, we have the Burst Quad Launcher. So it's basically the same thing as the quad launcher, but it's shot in bursts of 2 instead of 1. And it was a pretty good way to apply pressure to players who are boxing up. It would do only 42 damage though, so you had to get pretty close to hit them with multiple rockets in order to do some serious damage. And at the end of the day, it's just an okay weapon. It was annoying to get shot at by it, but it just wasn't enough damage or burst damage to really justify using it. Now, this next one is pretty controversial. At number 16, we have the Chug Cannon. Now, it is a useful healing item, and it is technically infinite heals, but the recharge time on this thing was very long. It also took up 2 slots. So I feel like it was only really useful if you were playing in a squad where one person had enough space to carry it. But if you're solo or duo, it just takes up too much, and it only heals you for up to 75 fully charged. You have to wait 20 seconds per charge to get more splash. And with all the other exotics, I would say this one is pretty average. Next up at number 15, we have the Dragon Breath Sniper. Now, this was like a normal bolt action sniper with an added fire effect. This was a great way to get people to leave their boxes, especially if they were in wood. You could just shoot their box and it would catch on fire. It was very annoying to get pressured by this, and it did one-shot headshot. And at the time, snipers were actually not really in the game. So this being in the game made it a go-to for anybody who's trying to trick shot or just snipe in the game in general. Now, the thing about the fire is it was annoying for your enemies, but it was also annoying for you because you could damage yourself and your own teammates if you happen to get near the fire. And trust me, people would do that all the time. And at number 14, we have an exotic that some of you might not know about. The SypherPK Trap Tower. This was only available during the SypherPK Icon Skin Cup. And it was a basically porta-fort that was shaped like a trap tower. Now, the reason why it's not higher on this list is because it was actually a pretty balanced item. You would throw it down and it would create a trap tower with some tires at the bottom. And the only real way to get eliminations with this is to throw it at someone's feet in a really good way, like where they're not on some weird terrain. People did manage to get eliminations with this, but in reality, if this was actually in the Battle Royale loot pool, not a lot of people would use it besides just for trolling, which is why it was made in the first place. And honestly, I think it's crazy that this actually got made because when I brought up the idea to Epic, they initially said they might not have enough time to do it. And then last minute, they said they actually pulled it off and they showed me a prototype and it was perfect. It's very cool that I have my own item in Fortnite. And next up, we have the Hop Rock Dualies. So this is like the dual wield pistols, but every time you shoot, you get the Hop Rock effect. The thing is, the dual wield pistols in general suck. They're not very accurate. They don't have first shot accuracy, and neither do the Hop Rock Dualies. The only thing that made these actually kind of useful is you could use them for mobility and you could use them to avoid fall damage. And you could also combo them with other movement items. So the damage was actually pretty good if you got close enough to people. 174 DPS is still pretty decent, but these were very useless from further away. And most people just use them for movement, which is why they're not lower on this list. Speaking of movement, at number 12, we have the Grappler Bow, one of the better bows from the Primal season. This is probably the best one they had because technically it was a mechanical bow. So if you shot somebody in the head with this thing, it would one-shot kill them like a sniper. But you could also use it to grapple to and from places, and it would remove fall damage when you use it, which made it very, very versatile and very useful. The only thing that keeps it in the middle of the pack is that it is a bow, and honestly, most of the bows in Fortnite were never really that powerful. At number 11, we have the Dub, the exotic double barrel shotgun. Now, the thing about this is it wasn't really meant to be used to kill people. This thing was meant to be used for movement, combining it with augments to fly through the sky, and just in general, pushing people off of builds so that they can fall to their death. It was a very niche weapon, but it had a lot of different useful moments, and people even started using it in tournaments to rotate in endgame. And when something is used by pro players in tournaments, it's got to be useful. And at number 10, we have the Shadow Tracker. This is the exotic silence pistol, and it marked people when you hit them. Now, this thing did a lot of damage. It would shred through people's HP, and the marker would stay on their head for a while. So if you tagged somebody and you had a team that was all, hunting down the same person that you tagged, it was a very useful way to single somebody out and just get them deleted. Definitely not one of the best weapons of all time, but I do think it's just a very useful weapon and deserves to be in the top 10. At number 9, we have the Super Slap Splash. These are rated higher than the Chili Splashes for a few reasons. So this one gave you 30 shield instead of 15, so the heals are already way higher. The infinite sprint lasts 30 seconds longer than the normal Slap Splash, and is extremely useful just to heal or to get out of sticky situations. If you had 6 of these, it's 180 HP that you could heal, plus the infinite sprint. These are just way too useful to be anywhere but the top 10 on this list. Now, this next one wasn't that useful when it first came out, but if it was in the game right now, it would be super strong. At number 8, we have the Storm Scout Sniper. So now this thing was just kind of like a weaker version of a regular sniper. It did have a few more shots in the chamber, but the thing about it is when you ADS, you could actually see where the future storm circle is. Basically the forecast tower, but on the sniper. Now, the thing is, pro players actually started competing to be able to get this item in tournaments because it was just so useful to know where the future storm was, and people did use it to do well in tournaments. And for that reason, it's definitely high on this list. And at number 7, we have the Heisted Run and Gun SMG. So you're going to see all 5 of the heisted weapons topping this list because Epic did an amazing job with all of them. And they obviously came out in Chapter 4. And at that time, Epic really knew how to make a decent weapon. This one is probably the worst of the heisted weapons, in my opinion, because it was just like a normal P90, but it gave you the slap effect so you could infinitely sprint with it. Now, the thing about the P90, though, is it's not a very accurate gun. Even just like the legendary version of a P90 is not that great compared to like the Combat SMG or the Twin Mag SMG. And the other heisted SMG is the Twin Mag, which is why this one isn't in the top 5. At number 6, we have the Burst Pulse Rifle. So if you guys saw my Mythic ranking video, you guys know I ranked the overclocked Pulse Rifle extremely high. Now, this one worked like the Pulse Rifle, but when you aim down sights, you shoot in bursts of 2. The normal Pulse Rifle shot only shot 1 bullet at a time, and when you ADS, there was a delay in between each shot, but the Pulse Rifle eliminates that delay because it shoots twice. Now, the thing about this one is that it's not overclocked, so it doesn't have that insane hipfire fire rate or the accuracy that the Mythic one had, but it was pretty good at dealing damage from a distance, and it served its role very well, which is why it's number 6 on this list. And now for our top 5. At number 5, we have the Heisted Blink Mag SMG. So the Twin Mag SMG is probably one of the best SMGs in Fortnite period, so the Heisted version having an extra effect made it top this list very easily. Every time you reloaded, you would get the 0-point dash effect, and you could dash about 3 times before it runs out. Now, the thing about the Twin Mag SMG is you could reload pretty fast with it using the Twin Mag effect. So you could use the 0-point dash very effectively. And some players like Tfue were masters at using this to outmaneuver people in zero builds. And of course, the Twin Mag did a ton of damage and was very accurate, which is why this is top 5. At number 4, we have the Heisted Explosive Assault Rifle. This was the exotic version of the Red Eye. The thing is, it wasn't hit scan. It had bullet travel similar to a sniper rifle. If it was hit scan, this would probably be number 1 on the list. But the damage of area effect that the bullets had, because they would explode on impact, made this extremely useful. If you actually hit somebody with this, you would do damage and the explosion would do damage. But if somebody was hiding behind a tree or a cover, you could just shoot around the cover and you would still hit them with the explosion. It also did decent damage to structures and in general was just extremely useful. At number 3, we have the Heisted Accelerator Shotgun. This is the best shotgun, especially in zero build, and it would shred through players' HP. It was the regular auto shotgun from Chapter 4, but every time you did damage with it and every time you shot it, you would actually move faster and you would shoot faster with this thing. So when it was really fired up, you could just double tap somebody for over 200 damage instantly. It was definitely a lot more OP and broken in zero build because in build mode, people would just build after you shot them, so you wouldn't be able to take full advantage of the extra speed and the extra fire rate. But in zero build, this thing was a menace. Easily one of the best shotguns we've ever had in Fortnite. And at number 2, we got another player-created exotic. The Yeet Gun, the exotic Flint Knock pistol. This was only available during the Laser Beam Icon Skin Cup. It was basically an overclocked, overtuned version of the Flint Knock pistol. It would send you or your opponent flying across the entire map, and people were using this to just float in the air. It was also extremely accurate and hit for a ton of damage. The only reason this isn't number 1 is because it wasn't actually in the game. It was only available during the Icon Cup for Laser Beam, but out of respect, I gotta put this in the top 2 because it was disgusting. And now at number 1, the number 1 exotic weapon, it's the Heisted Breacher Shotgun. Now, for some of you, this might be a surprise because it was a very difficult gun to use. But if you've seen any of the Fortnite Pro players use this or any top tier player use this gun when it was available, it was crazy, especially before they nerfed it. This thing could one-shot any single wall And players use that masterfully to just box people in or just break into someone's box. And the thing is, it also hit for over 190 headshot damage, and it had a bunch of shots to use. It was very, very accurate, which is why some people were bad with it, because they would miss their shots. But if you were someone like Reet, who could hit every single shot, this thing allowed people to just drop 30 bombs in victory cups and just absolutely terrorize people in stacked endgames. It had insane range, insane damage, and extremely good utility by breaking through people's structures in just a single shot, which is why this is number 1 on my list of exotics. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments, and thank you guys so much for watching.